Hello, everybody. Welcome to another show of Ahead of the Curve. This week, I've got my good guest, Vince. Vince, welcome to the show. Or I should say, welcome back to the show.
Welcome back indeed. Yes, thank you. Great to be here.
So Vince was on an episode, was it November? Yeah, it was November 2020 on an XR panel. And Vincent is from a company called EVOKE Studios, which is based basically in between, I guess, the UK and Germany.
I think, yeah, that's a funny one to phrase. I always say Europe because we have 4 partners in the company, and we're a multinational, but in the literal sense. So I'm Dutch, but I live in London. We have someone from Latvia who lives in Latvia. We have someone from Switzerland who lives in Berlin, and we have someone from Mexico who lives in Madrid. And we're building a stage in Germany. So it's
definitely pretty well sprawled out along the western ridges of Europe.
Very well, yeah. Yeah.
So where's the studio that you guys are currently building in Germany?
It's in a very small town, actually, in Denkendorf, which is it's about an hour's drive from Munich. It's specifically built there for the German market. It's not in a big city or anything of the like. But for the German market, that location makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, what's been the big draw to actually building an XR stage in Germany? Or outside of Munich?
There's a lot of corporate and automotive clients in Germany. So the market for the application of XR solutions is quite large. And things like the Hannover Messe, which are usually these quite vast physical trade shows, they're all going virtual. So we're providing a platform to basically allow events like that to to transition and make sure they can still reach their audience, and that's why we're doing that there. But it's more, the location is more led by our client, more so than ourselves. But it's good for us regardless. So
yeah, absolutely. I was just going to say, I mean, having a team that sprawled out and then deciding to build, an area that you're going to spend a lot of time working in, so far away.
Well, we will also have some. We might have someone actually moving there relatively closely to the stage, and we have a lot of connections in Germany already, so it's not a problem for us to work there specifically. And if anything, I mean, we were already used to working remotely from before the pandemic because that's how we've always done it. So for us, it's not so much of an issue. We were looking last year at opening an office, but then the pandemic happened, so it made no sense, and growth became that becomes a secondary objective basically. So this year we will. I mean, if how busy we are now is an indicator for the rest of the year, it's likely we will have an office, and I think we're going to go to Berlin for that because it's a good European hub. It's well connected, and sadly, because of Brexit, London is no longer the place to be. Otherwise, we would have been firmly in London. I'm convinced of that, but that's politics is what it is. So we just
tell me about it. I live in the United States, remember?
I wasn't going to mention anything to do with your politics, but congratulations on your new president. My Twitter feed has been so quiet lately. No, I think it's it has its challenges for sure. There's a reason why people have an office, and then they bring the people to the office to then run the business from the office. And of course, that's something that we run into. But at the same time, 80% of the planning work and consulting and workflow related tasks that we are involved in they can be done remotely. And the work that we do on site has always been anywhere on the planet. So this makes no difference. But for research purposes, it matters that we have a space and some gear, and because it just makes life easier in order to basically develop products or services or what have you to grow the company. So that's what we will do this year, considering that life won't be like it was last year, of course, but it's looking much better now.
Yeah, I think things are starting to look definitely up and up. The vaccines are being deployed a lot more. We're starting to see a lot more, or starting to hear, I should say, about a lot more deployment of the vaccines as they're becoming more available, globally. Yeah. Some countries are, I think, more proactive and more active about it than others, but I think we're going to get there. All predictions are leading towards a more healthy fall, hopefully, with the entertainment industry. I like to be a little bit more conservative about that prediction and think that it might be more late fall, early 2022. But we can definitely stay optimistic and hope that trend.
I think if, and I'm not sure if this is the case now or not. I couldn't quite find actual confirmation, but I heard that the Olympics in Japan are still being canceled, but they might still happen. But I think it's not so clear at the moment. But the fact that what's it called? Oh, what's it called? The big UK festival, Glastonbury. The fact that Glastonbury canceled this year is, I would dare to call that an indicator that the industry is not just going to come back. I was personally hoping that if at least part of the festival season can happen, that would just be tremendously healthy for our industry, right? For the entertainment industry, that is. But I'm a realist, so I don't. Optimism is a nice thing, but it's not really going to help at the end of the day. So I don't know what's going to happen. I hope that, from my perspective, I think when we can stop doing PCR tests and people are actually vaccinated, I think that's when a shift will happen back to physical events. But I find it hard to gauge when that might be. But yeah, I'm hoping, of course, as well that that will happen sooner rather than later, but it has to be done safely. But I think, a lot of people, I think we've spoken about this before, the longer people don't work, it's really bad for your mental health. And I think specifically people in our industry, we do that for a reason. And if you lose that purpose for an elongated amount of time, that's not good. So I think we were very, I don't want to say lucky. We've been, working towards XR for the last 2.5 years or so. But the fact that is a way of working that we can still safely execute is incredibly valuable, and we're very happy that we can do that. But I live events is what we all love. So, not that XR is really cool, because it is, and it's an amazing solution for a number of markets. And, as a studio, we're, as a result of, the current climate, we're pivoting towards industry companies that, because these big, household names, they still have products that they need to get out there. They have messaging that still needs to be taken care of.
Yep.
And that no pandemic is going to stop that. And that means there is a market. It's just a question of, can you and do you want to go there? And for us, the answer is definitely yes.
Well, that's kind of always the question. I mean, I made a huge transition, back in my career, where I went from, still in live event. Well, I guess I've made quite a few transitions actually, but when I was working in live events, I made a pretty big transition from going from working, in music to working on more corporate events and large scale corporate shows. And in some cases it becomes natural because you're depending on who you're working with or depending on the economy at the time or whatever. But I think you've got to you really hit a good point. Is you have to make those choices whether you want to make that transition or you don't want to make that transition, and kind of guide your business in the way that you want to, or even yourself in the way that you want to, in the places that you want to work. And let's face it, in a lot of ways, a lot of it could be financially driven. You need to be able to survive as a person, but you also need to be able to survive in a lot of ways as a company. So it makes it challenging sometimes to have to make those decisions. Yeah. I think that there's also a level of sacrifice that definitely comes with that, and you have to really weigh things down quite heavily before making those transitions. For me personally, it was just organic, and I just kind of went along with the flow of the way that things went. I've always kind of treated things like that. I've been very organic in the way that I've transitioned in my career through the entertainment industry. But I look back at some choices, and I don't have any regrets. But I look back at some of the choices and go, what would things be like if I had not made that decision, or if I had gone into a different direction? Sometimes I like to fantasize about what that might be like in a different world. But I'm very happy where I am now. So,
you know what? Okay, so that's a topic that is much more personal and completely unrelated to the topic of what the conversation is going to be. But it's probably a much more interesting conversation, to be honest with you. So I think if you look, okay, so to reply to what you just said about or how doing things organically and on that basis, it is how I like to run my company. For sure, but I am an opportunist, and so I do believe that if you put work into something, then your life is always going to be life, but at least you take the luck factor down a notch, and I think in that regard you have some limited amount of control over what you're going to do. Maybe you have a lot of control depending on your perception of things. About where things are headed, and I think that we, a number of those situations you can create, right, with strategy and applying yourself, and part is just opportunities that will just arise, and you're not going to see them coming.
Yeah, you don't even expect them. You don't even expect them to pose themselves.
No, exactly. So I think in the last, we're a very young company, relatively speaking. We've all been in the entertainment industry for, over a decade at least, and sometimes plenty more than that. So, if a pandemic hits, the thing that we did was exercise, resilience, and I think that what we like, I know that the most important thing to me is running a healthy business and delivering for our clients, and how we make sure that we do the right thing for me means that I listen to what the market demands.
Yep.
Because what I want at a personal level, in the years like these, is kind of irrelevant. It's not entirely irrelevant, but I really have to put that in the second place, because step number one is making sure we have work so everyone can do their thing and we can pay ourselves. And it's fine. Like, we're doing relatively well, I think, compared to maybe some other people. But that's what I'm trying to say. I think I really try to have a holistic approach and put your personal needs on the back seat sometimes, because sometimes you just have to work and make sure you can work. I'm not saying that in a negative way.
Not at all. I think a lot of the viewers can also relate to that, because there's just been, we've been talking about this week after week in a lot of different ways about the impact that COVID has had on the industry. And, I kind of feel like, what's the metaphor I'm looking for? I'm probably not even going to remember or be able to think of what it is, but I almost feel like a broken record, week after week talking about some of these things, but it's
Also,
really...
I'm sorry for going there, because I knew that this was like, oh yeah, this must have been a weekly thing now, but it is still very relevant,
Yeah, it's extremely relevant, and it has, there's been so many people that have had to make very difficult decisions in what they're going to do and where they're going to go over the course of this last year. I think a lot of people have had to, kind of rebuild themselves and really look at it. It's actually given, it's kind of like the whole entertainment industry and the whole, like just the whole industry as a whole, a big fat reset button has been pushed. Like everybody was kind of chugging forward, everything was going really, really well, and then all of a sudden, all hell broke loose, and almost everything came to a screaming halt. Panic set in. It was kind of chaotic again back in March. Things have settled in a lot more, but I think in a lot of ways, it was actually a really good thing that also happened, because people had time to reevaluate what they're doing, what they really wanted to do, some of the important things in life that maybe had gotten put on the back burner. And it's definitely been very transitional for so many different people. And that's one of the really interesting things that I find about extended reality and some of the workflows, because without COVID, in some ways, like things wouldn't have been as fast-tracked as they have been now. Development, the need and the supply and the demand have gone up exponentially for virtual production workflows and extended reality. There's been a tremendous amount of work that's been put into the industry from a lot of the different software suppliers.
Yep.
Like we already know Epic. Epic has been pushing forward like a freight train with development inside of our industry, and have been implementing a ton of different tools, workflows to be able to adapt to the needs and the requirements within our industry. We've been seeing a lot of evolution and change inside of tools like Notch and Touch Designer and Unity, and I've heard VVV or V4 come up actually even more this year than ever in the past.
Of course,
It's been a year of software. It's been like a crazy year of software and software development.
Yeah, no, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and it's just been a huge year of transition, for just a lot of people. And a lot of people that used to be working and doing live events have all moved over to experimenting inside of the game engines, and lighting designers and lighting directors learning how to work in a virtual environment, and then collaborating and working those workflows from a lighting perspective into a video perspective, and creating these incredible virtual experiences together.
Yep.
And that's been really cool to see over this past year, and it's been so exciting.
Yeah, I think this. So let's look at the upside of things. So I think, like I said, I try and be a realist, and I'm pretty pragmatic. So I think whether or not this situation is good or bad, it's going to be circumstantial to who and where you are in life. So I think that the people that would always have the argument of, I don't have time to learn anything new. Well, now you definitely did. But then that doesn't mean that, but maybe you don't have the opportunity to put it into practice. This is what I run into, because we speak to people who want to do work with us, which is cool. But then, there is a bit of a learning curve when it comes to doing XR, for instance. So we're like really willing to provide people with work when we can, but we also need to do that safely so that we can still deliver for our clients while we teach these people how to do this. And it's a fun process, but sometimes you just need someone who can just do the job. I think I probably hit on that before, and then I'll leave the personal aspect there. But I think for us as well, like, it was great. I've never been at home as much in the last 8 years as I was last year. It was. I have never had it happen that I thought, oh, it's Tuesday night, I need to take these bins out. Because I had that thought, it's like it's completely alien to me, like, I'm more like, oh yeah, another flight, yeah, let's have another flight, why not? But it's in my case, I've been very fortunate in the last couple of years in any case, but also privately, I grew very close with my girlfriend, and who's now my fiance, and that's great, so there are some real benefits. But if I look around, yeah, I mean, I see that in my colleagues too. We need to keep working, and we need to be productive. Otherwise, you don't just lose your skills; you lose yourself, and that's really essential, I think. And and that's what I mean. Like, the good thing is that it does look like, at least in the small niche of AR, XR, where we now function, there is work, and it is happening, and that's really great news. But also, we are getting requests in for coming years, which is then for live performance again, and design for that. And then to have all these relatively, I mean, AR is not exactly new, but it's relatively recent to see a lot of it used in live performance. And I can't wait to apply it, basically, and to have that as a new color on the palette, to then make new experiences. Because I think technology like that, and what we're gonna, like, 5G is also, I mean, yeah, it's here, but is it really here? I think next year and the year after, maybe it's here. But what we're going to do with that is going to be really exciting, like what mobile chips can do, and the fact that we can start putting mobile AR on top of projection mapping. You're going to have these hybrid events where a part of it is going to be a shared experience, the one you literally see physically, and then there's like the virtual, or like the, I don't know, the like the digital individual, which is what you experience through your screen.
Or even your glasses. I mean, for me, the one thing that I'm really interested in is the whole wearables idea, and how well, I was speaking to Drew about this a little bit last week, but how much impact that's going to also have on attending event. I mean, if it gets to the point where it's really good and we get really high resolution, decent wearables, I think it's going to open up a whole new level of live events and live event production. And
in the interest, yes, which is entirely true, I think. But I think the interesting part about it is what hasn't already been thought of to do with that tech. Because really, I don't know how many years this is going to be, but it will be the case. Like, we will wear lenses or have some kind of implant that will just do the processing for you straight to your visual cortex or whatever. I'm sure that will happen. There's no reason why it wouldn't, and technology does put on. Hey, Berto! That will definitely happen, and I'm basically sad that I don't live 100 years from now, because that's also, maybe at that point you don't care about it anymore. But right now, it's like
I could call my mom if you want. I mean, she's in her mid 80s. I bet you she's got some things she can tell you about.
No, but the thing to think about is basically, okay, so then we have AR everywhere. So then basically you're going to have to pay for a service so that you're not going to see ads everywhere you walk, because that's what will happen.
So Berto, what are your thoughts on wearable technology? See, he's got Neuralink, the Neuralink website already posted.
I'm just gonna link. Thanks, Berto.
It's another Elon Musk creation. To put digital implants into our brains.
That is, I mean, I will be honest with you. I would definitely volunteer to go to Mars. I would not volunteer to have an implant put in my brain first. I mean, Elon is great, but I don't think that's the way for me. But no, but implanted tech, yeah, of course,
Yeah.
yeah. So no, that makes, and that's what I was thinking about the other day. Is like, yeah. So what reality is that? Right? Is that implanted reality? Then is that is that maybe we call it like EV or something, like expanded vision, or I don't know. There's going to be some other, basically a wanky marketing term, but someone will come up with what that needs to be called, and then for ages people won't understand what that is. Just like the problem we have right now with AR and XR and all these other MR, VR, whatever. It's like this, I mean, I love this stuff, but I can actually explain it. But the amount of people we speak to that have no bloody clue is fascinating. But you can't. I'm not saying that in a judgmental way. This is just reality. Like, if people aren't techie, you're gonna have to Eli 5 how this stuff works and why you need it. The way in which, and I'll be honest, the way we sell our services is because people see a reel and they like what they see. That doesn't mean that they understand what they're looking at. And I think that's really key. And with this stuff, when FR was that for real? I think just for ads if you're using subsidized AR, but I'm sure there will be premium options. Oh yeah, no, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I completely agree, Drew. That's definitely gonna happen. Be the case. So, it's very. I do believe at that point this technology is also physically, but let's keep it to lenses. It's very visually invasive, but it's also.
I'd love to. It's visually invasive, but at the same time, there's so many things that we've also done in our industry that's also visually invasive.
Oh no, for sure, and it's like I would. Don't get me wrong. This is the one thing that I am super excited about this. Imagine that you can actually, if you have a familiar, maybe you have some magical looking pet that just runs around or flies around you, and you can see that, but other people can see it too. That's super amazing, and that's really exciting, and that goes way beyond performance design or anything like that. This is actually like life enhancement up to some level, and you can get companionship, I'm sure, through that as well. A lot like,
I mean, I've already got my own little digital pet that I carry around with me everywhere.
What, a Tamagotchi or what?
It's in. It's all stuck in my brain.
It's stuck in your brain, is it? Do you take pills for that, or is it?
It's an imaginary digital friend that I've had for a very long time.
I see. Well, what's his name?
What's his name, honey? Come on, give me a name. You're so good with names. Leonard. Oh my goodness.
Leonard. I'd love to meet Leonard sometime. Sounds like a great.
Trust me, you don't want to meet Leonard.
A gigapet, yeah. No, but imagine, this is what we always wanted, because then we can finally run notch post effects on our own eyes, right? Like, finally.
Yeah, that's right. You can apply whatever effect you want in real time.
I don't know. I mean, I think there's going to be the value there for ad placement is just enormous, right? Like, just enormous. Also, it means that you, by the time we get to that point, the only thing they will probably need to fix is opaqueness of things.
Yep.
Which maybe they can. I mean, I'm sure you can figure that out. Just turn some pixels off. But I think that's the end of screens, because you don't need them anymore. That will no longer be a thing, because you can just have them there. I think the thing that will also. I think I'm a little dyspraxic, so my brain sometimes struggles with stuff, which is totally fine. But as a result, I spent a lot of time thinking about how basically inefficient human brains are at typing strings into machines. So I think the other thing that's going to get solved is you don't have to type anymore. Everything will just be a link, and it'll just be there. That's what needs to happen, and whatever tech will just turn that all your thoughts into code, and it will just do stuff. It always upsets me when I watch some kind of sci-fi and I see a robot typing on a keyboard. It's like, why? This makes no sense. Why would that ever be? You can just connect or Wi-Fi or whatever. There's got to be some way in which the physical interaction does no longer need to happen. I think there's going to be a lot of basically thought-based activation doing whatever, so you just think about it and then it'll happen. And there will still be some kind of technological connection to it. But the fact that your brain can give a suggestion and then something will, take place, I think is completely viable.
We'll all be neurologically connected.
I think we're back to
the neural network.
No, but this is, and that's
we are back to Neuralink.
Yeah, which is totally fine, But I think the difficult, I'm not going to put myself on some pedestal as much as I love sci-fi. I think it is difficult to have an original thought about anything as a human being, and especially when it comes to this type of science. It is kind of a science, right? So
well, it's all a science. I mean, hell, everything that we do is a science.
Yeah, no, for sure. But to really, I think a lot of the ideas that we are right now excited for, as far as tech that is going to be possible, we've already had these ideas since at least the 70s or the 80s, maybe even longer ago. And that's what I mean. It's like,
in all honesty, you're very much on par there. I mean, I keep on telling everybody you should go check out SIGGRAPH if you want to look into the future of what we're doing.
No, but that's true. That's where the real smart monkeys, haha, fun, are actually at, and that's cool, and that is interesting, and so all I can, I think sometimes it's healthy to look at yourself as if you're a rather dumb person that doesn't know very much, which is, and what I mean by that is, it keeps you kind of humble when you think about, all these cool, great ideas. Yeah, they're probably not that great or even that cool, and someone else has probably thought of them already. And I think when it comes to a lot of this stuff, that is definitely the case, because everyone already understands exactly what I'm talking about, because everyone's already thought about exactly the same thing. And that's where I'm convinced this will become practice, and it'll be theory for a while longer, but we're going to do all of this stuff, like I'm the things I'm waiting for are, where you can basically stream someone else's visual cortex into yours, so you can share it that way. And this is basic, right? It's just video streaming. This is not hard. I think a lot, and that's what I mean. A lot of those things that seem cool are almost also immediately kind of basic. But I think
I think it really just comes down to, again, like, I mean, the workflows and the processes and the theories are all definitely there, but it comes down to the technology to be able to catch up, to be able to actually physically be able to do it. Like the data that you're talking about in transmitting, having a neural link or a brain or neocortex or a cortex-based link in your brain to transmit that information, we already know is extremely high. It's a very high bandwidth in data that would have to be transferred, interpolated all in real time between each human. And the amount of bandwidth that would take would be absolutely tremendous. Maybe the Smart Monkeys guys can give us an idea of how much bandwidth that would be. But I know it's tremendous.
No, but I think at that point, I was thinking, is there something, at some point everything was analog and there was no digital, right?
Yeah.
And then digital became a thing, and then, Black Mirror shows. Yeah,
we're back to Black Mirror. But I agree.
I think that the future of this is in the biological, because if you see how much data most cells, but sperm cells, for instance, like how much data they store, that's incredible, relatively speaking, to what we now have in a computer, right? So if quantum computing, oh yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
So I don't. Sorry, I was kind of getting around it, but I think the bandwidth is the boring part of the story, and I'm sure it'll get resolved because there will be some processor or some way of doing it, But if I read this ages ago now, where they stored an OS system into some cells, and then they were able to completely retrieve the data. So I think that's to me is interesting. And I think that's relatively close to becoming more common as far as enabling these kinds of technologies is concerned. I think it's going to be a lot of it has to be physical. I think there's going to be a lot to do with how our bodies function, and that will inform how that data can also be transferred, I think. But I am definitely not a scientist, so I have no understanding of how that would work.
I might have to look into getting like Elon Musk on the show or something, just so we could have this conversation.
If you just bring anime memes, I'm sure he's gonna be game. Hey, he's the richest guy on the planet. Of course, he has time to post memes. This makes
no problem. I'll work on it. Get them on here next couple of weeks.
Exactly. Yeah, no, but look, this stuff is it's really interesting, and I think the coolest part about it is that through things like video games and interactive experiences, we can basically already apply all of this logic in that virtual world we can create. We just can't do it physically yet. And that's the thing. All of these concepts that we're talking about, they've already been done in video games and in film. It's all been done. And I don't want to say that therefore it is also automatically boring, but I mean, when's the last time you heard an actually new idea to do with these things? That was really interesting. And I think we are going to see that when these technologies are actually available, and where you go, oh, that's a use case that was thought of because of circumstance in that time. And I don't think we can predict those yet, but I'm sure maybe some really smart people can. Nature's always been a blueprint. Yeah, no, but that's the truth. So, I think maybe the thing that will enable us to go further as people on a technical level is not the digital, but is the organic. And the connection between those two. Well, that needs to happen anyway, right? But yeah.
Yeah, anyway. I would agree wholeheartedly with you. I mean, it's been kind of the interesting part about seeing virtual production also evolve is the translation between the physical world and the digital world, and how they are starting to really meld together, as one. I remember seeing some earlier experiments of using physical light and virtual light within the same environment, and being able to translate those characteristics from the physical world over into the digital world, and vice versa, has been quite remarkable to see that shift happen. And I think there are these little shifts that happen inside of technology and inside of just the way that like our evolution and the evolutions that happen inside of technology. Like there's these little milestones that happen, and they're milestones that might not even be fully expected to happen, but they just happen at a certain moment in time. And when we hit that milestone, it's like a pivotal change happens, like it's almost like a software branch, where we get to a certain point and then you branch things off and you start really building off of those branches to evolve into different things. And that's been really fascinating to see recently. And even the evolution in, computer technology. I mean, just what Berto had mentioned here a little bit earlier about quantum computing. And seeing that evolve as well. Like everything is just getting quicker. The processes are happening faster. The amount of data that we can process now is, I mean, all of the new hardware that's coming out on the market computer-wise is proving to be exponentially faster, of course, than its predecessors. So it's really kind of cool to see all of this stuff unfold in front of us, and to be able to see, the extended reality workflows evolve at such a rapid pace. It's quite mind-blowing to see that happen.
See, I find that, okay, yeah. So, in that case, the pandemic really is like an accelerator for that type of technology, right? And I was thinking basically what we have to accept with XR is that, 80, 90 years ago, there were theater directors that would want to block out stages or use certain things or use flats or whatever. They have very limited tech, right? And what we can now basically, 8 decades later, what we can do is actually make everything how it would look, except it's not physical, and that's where what I see when I see XR is that we need a lot of big clunky equipment like cameras and things like that to actually make this work. And I can't wait to see what 30, 40 years from now, how we're doing it. I
can't wait to see what things are going to be like in 5 to 10 years from now.
Yeah, okay, but this conversation is a little further out than 5 or 10 years.
I mean, I suppose. Now I'm the one being optimistic.
No, I mean, look, you know what? I think I'm curious to see what year it's going to be when we can do Ready Player One. When we're all going to become super fat people and lay in a bed with full haptics, and that we can do that, and transport you into a different world. Because I don't think VR is that by a mile. You're going to be too aware that you're in a game. So getting to that point where whatever that experience is actually takes you over your complete consciousness, I think that's going to be really interesting when that's going to happen. For sure will help with turn. Yeah, no, for sure it will. For Absolutely. Sure it will. So that's the thing. I think there's a lot of incremental kind of evolutionary steps that we will, as people and as tech nerds, just have to go through in order to refine these solutions. And I think that's exciting. And right now, I mean, the thing I'm personally looking forward to, which is a lot more tangible, which will happen in the next 1 to 5 years, is adding those technologies to live events design and making them commonplace there, for the acts that have the money for that and etc. But I think that's exciting, and that's really cool because it is actually something new, in that regard. Things like Carbon for Unreal, like you mentioned, you have these lighting designers working in these game engines. There is a future for those things, and it makes sense that they're being made. But I'm not sure that they will bring about such a massive shift in the industry or anything like that. Whereas XR as a tech, I think, has done that. Or maybe it was just ready at the time.
I could say arguably, that whole same shift has been within a lot of the different 2-letter acronyms, and the similarities of I feel that extended reality is really an extension, we call it MR, right? Mixed reality, for all of the different realities to fall under category. But they're all playing off of each other. Virtual reality kind of really being the first one in the markets, followed by augmented reality, and now what we call extended reality. And they've all kind of chained off of each other, but they're all follow the same fundamentals of technology under the hood.
Yeah, they do. And the thing that they now have in common is it's all based on some 3D environment, whether it's green screen or structures in AR or what have you. So they use the same basic principles. And so actually, much like those directors and what they wanted to do 80 years ago, I actually want to ask Berto. Berto, what is the thing that is currently not possible that you've been dreaming about forever? What is the thing that people need to make and they will do at some point? And it's not Neuralink. I'm sure it's something else that you've been thinking about that's like, people can't do it. What is that thing, because it's just really interesting to know. And then, are any of us going to remember? I mean, who knows? But to see in a couple decades from now how far we've actually come, because I think XR is still based on, broadcast cameras, which have been around for donkey's years. So a lot of this stuff is very rooted in technologies that have been around for decades, or millennia almost. So I think we're going to get into really exciting territory when we are no longer attached to those existing legacy technologies, if you will. Basically, I think that we should be able to film anywhere without having a physical camera present.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it would work, but there's got to be a way.
There was a company actually that was working on that through using contact lenses, actually, a contact lens that could capture and transmit. And I have no idea what happened to that company, but I remember seeing some articles and reading up on some articles about that kind of tech and what they were doing. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. But, it's like vaporware, really. It's these ideas really drive technology, and they drive they drive the industry as well.
Sure. And think about the GDPR implications of that as well. It's like,
well, yeah. I mean, another big area that we kind of have to, that the biggest hurdle I think that we have in a lot of ways is ourselves, our privacy, the way that we keep ourselves secure and security. There's these big personal hurdles that kind of slow things down a lot as well. I think there's a lot of tech and a lot of different things that have come about that are just not possible just due to the infringements that they would have on our own privacy and the infringements that they would have on our securities as people.
I think that's becoming very philosophical, right? So because you can go very wide with that, and at the end of the day,
it's what I do, my friend. It's what I do.
Because along the same lines, it's basically people holding back people. It's look at the Dark Ages are called the Dark Ages for a reason, and it's because people have certain beliefs, they're attached to certain things, and you can argue that keeps mankind back, and it keeps tech back or whatever. You can argue that this pandemic holds mankind back for a couple of years, but also it forces innovation, and it will drive solutions that would have never been invented without it. Same thing goes for war. I wouldn't argue that war is ever a good thing, but it pushes technology like really hard, and you can think of that whatever you want, but that is the case. I mean, sorry, let me just read that question. Do I think XR will be standard in film replacing green screen? It's already doing that. Yeah,
I think it's probably more of a broad question if it'll become a complete standard as a whole, as a full green screen replacement. I mean, it's a good question, to be honest with you. I think it kind of already has, but you still see a lot of studios building green screen and using more traditional green screen. But I think again, the LED prices are coming down, the resolutions are going up, things are becoming much, much more affordable. That tech is evolving again like crazy. I can't see any reason why it wouldn't become completely mainstream.
And I think you hit the nail on the head there. So Jorge, it's a good question. If the ways of it always, the world drives on money. So if that solution is cheaper and better, well, it doesn't even need to be better. If it's cheaper, it will get used. And it's still circumstantial, right? Like you try and do live camera shading on an XR set, you can't really do it. Like if you have set extensions anyway and you want your colors to match, you basically can't touch that stuff. But in green screen, you can. So I wouldn't make those blanket statements necessarily to say, yeah, it's going to replace this technology or that technology, because they are really unique tools that have unique applications. And I think, that's also what we try and kind of educate our clients on, is they don't do the same thing. If you want to do actually real-time shows with multi-camera switching, XR is pretty difficult. And I would like to think everyone in chat here is going to agree with that. So, and it doesn't mean you can't do it. You can, but you really need to consider what you're doing. And the client never wants to look in creative before production. You will fix it in post. Yeah, I said there is no more post.
Those are the famous 5 words. We'll fix it in post.
Exactly. So some of these things are never going to go away, and and then think about the adoption rate as well, right? Like depending on the country you're in, and these broadcast studios, they are, they're these kind of big bureaucratic kind of places, and some will be open to new technology and some will not be. And I think the thing to understand is theater still gets made. It didn't go away, and it's not going to go away either, because it's culture and it's what people make. And so I think the beauty about this tech is it's another way in which we can work and another way in which we can solve a problem for our customers and learn and do cool stuff, right? So
that's the part I'm in it for. It's to learn and do cool stuff.
That's literally, yeah, our business model is do cool shit for money. That is our business plan. So far, it's working out.
Personally, Vince, I think that's a pretty solid business plan. I think you're onto something there.
It works for us, I think.
So before we wrap it up, I wanted to get back to the question that you asked Berto, because Berto did actually reply.
Oh, yes, he did. Yeah.
So for him, it's more sensory and extended the physical world with all the technology. Right now, it's all locked into 2D based scenes, and how we take that out of the virtual world into the physical world.
Yeah, we need to get rid of the pixel. I think that's it. We need to get rid of looking at things as needing a bazillion light sources to make these things. I think when resolution is no longer the problem, then you can make these things real.
Yeah, you kind of have to just throw resolution out the window.
Basically. I mean, look, your brain can render what it sees, right? So it's not really, the processing is already there at the human level. But yeah, I like that. Basically goes back to I always forget 2049. What is I always forget what that film is called.
2049.
Yeah,
Blade Runner.
Blade Runner. Yeah. So all of those ideas, also including what Berto was saying, that's all very Blade Runner-y, or Ready Player One, and I get it, and I agree. Like that's also what I'm excited for. Like that will be, I think at that point, people have really transitioned into a new age, where right now we need physical screens, we need a lot of physical things around us, and I think the next step is I really hope it's going to go away, because that it'll provide a lot of freedom and a lot of flexibility, or however you want to, I don't know, I don't really have the words to describe it, but I think when we no longer need an HDMI cable between a source and an endpoint, then we get somewhere. Other than that, because I think the exciting thing is if we can free ourselves from infrastructure of whatever form, then that's where we can really transition into those other experiences. In the sensory and extending the physical world, I think the true essence of that is actually, lifting your consciousness into whatever that place is that you actually want to be in. When we can do that, that's where but then you're still probably physically somewhere. So I think that's where we're going to see it. I think the next step for VR is something like that. And then there will be, whatever is the body, AR, lenses, connections to all the stuff surrounding you. I hope it's going to happen. I hope I can see it, actually. That would be super exciting. It would be amazing.
I have a feeling that we might, like the way that things have been evolving and changing, I think there's a good possibility there, Vince.
I hope so.
We will certainly find out. We will certainly find out one way or another. Well, we've come to the end of the time for this session. So, Vince, I just wanted to thank you so much for joining me as part of the conversation. It's been a lot of fun having you here and actually being able to speak to you a little bit more in depth than the amount of time that we had with you on the panel. So
I hope I haven't bored everybody to death.
No, I don't think so.
It was a pleasure to be here.
I think the conversation has been just awesome. We're going to mix things up a little bit next week. We're going to actually be bringing on Tracy Osterman, who's already active and has been active member of the feed week after week. And we're going to bring on Christy as well, who does a lot of the social marketing for us next week as guests to speak about actually the importance of social media inside of the entertainment industry, how things are evolving and changing in that space, and also sponsorships and transitioning from sponsoring physical events to sponsoring virtual events and what that outlook looks like. So that'll be really interesting to have them on the show next week and kind of dive into that a little bit as well. But Vince, thank you so much for being on. Again, thanks to all the viewers week after week. It's been awesome. It's been quite an adventure going through this with everybody here. And I look really forward to seeing you guys all again next week. So until then, stay ahead of the curve, everyone. Talk to you again soon.
Thanks, everybody.